Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Memento Futurum podcast. This is Vanessa, your host, and today we're speaking with Madelyn Monaghan, and I'm so excited. A little bit about Madelyn before we start. So, she's an Irish American traditional singer, actress, writer, and international recording artist based in New York City. This September 2024, she was a leading performer at the Celtic World Forum in Dublin and at the Rockport Celtic Music Festival in Massachusetts. Madelyn's album, Iced, oh, we're going to have to talk about the pronunciation on that, a collaboration with Colin Vance, made it to the 2022 Grammys ballot in the Global Music category. Her voice can be heard in commercials, films, museums, and EDM arenas all over the world. In 2023, Madelyn co-wrote and sang on a Shanos EDM fusion track called Follow the King with Ben Gold of Armada Records in Amsterdam. The track has gotten remixed by the likes of Scottish DJ David Forbes and played on a State of Trance by Armin van Buuren. From viral TikToks to releasing her own contemporized arrangements of traditional songs, Madelyn has helped to bring the Shano style to the world stage. She also is a teacher of the style and has students on 5 continents. Welcome, Madelyn. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for having me. And you're quite close. It's Aisht,
Aced.
which means listen.
I had to put my brain on for a moment. I was like, oh, that's right, there's the word here.
You got it. No, you're good.
So I've taken a couple of lessons with Madelyn, which is really what inspired me to invite her on. And those sessions were so transformative for a lot of reasons that we'll get into, I think, later in this episode. Um, but what was I going to say? So I mean, I've been following along on social media with you for a little while now, and
Mm.
but I didn't know you did all these amazing things, like girlfriend.
Well, I don't know. I wish there were more hours in the day because, as you know, as a multidisciplinary person yourself, it's so hard to find time to do all the things. And then one wonders, what should I be dedicating most time to in order to make it in one of the things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay, girl. So I mean, I get really excited in these spaces. I'm like, I have to calm my little fairy self down. Um, so tell me first, because so I mean, I was reading your bio and I've read it before, but like in this moment, I think I mean, this space is really liminal and magical for me. It brought me like a
Mm.
wave of other things. So I was like threading some energies while I was like really dropping in with you. And it had me feeling to ask the first question, which was about your travels in September.
Mhm.
Um, and I think these episodes can be really nonlinear. So, um, yeah, like first, so you were in Ireland like
Yeah.
this month.
Yes. So earlier this month, I was invited to perform at the Celtic World Forum, which is a new festival. It's only in its second year, run by Ava McMahon, who is an amazing traditional singer and now artistic director. And she's performed all over the world, and she's incredible. And she co-founded this amazing thing where she brings all of these traditional musicians together, and most of the people are young traditional musicians who are um, really like spiritually and deeply connected to their ancestors and their culture, and brought us all together to perform 3 concerts 3 nights in a row in Dublin, in Balbriggan, a beautiful coastal town above Dublin, in a gorgeous new concert hall called the Lark. And all of us were like this traditional music supergroup, all people who care to stay true to our ancestors' music, but also make it contemporary and not, we're not afraid to like craft it into something modern and accessible. And so it was just really special to be there with all of these artists, some of whom are contemporaries of mine who I've been following for years on social media. We finally got to meet and play together in person. And then
Wow.
there were other people there who are legends of this style, who like Mairead Nesbitt is one. She's an amazing fiddle player. And I saw her perform when I was 10 years old. She came to the States, and
Mhm.
saw her perform when I was 10. And so the fact that I got to share the stage with her and Moya Brennan of Clannad, like all of these amazing heroes of mine, was really, really special.
Oh, I'm fangirling so hard. That's amazing. It's amazing. The Irish music style has been near and dear to my heart since I was probably about that age as well.
Mm,
And I mean, I'm Italian. I grew up in Italian households. My parents are from Italy, but
mhm.
I had my best friend across the street. I had a very rich Irish culture in her family, and it was like I spent so much time with her that I was like, I don't know, am I Irish?
Right.
Um, so it's so special to hear you talk about like what I heard was a bridge between the traditional style, is that how you put it, and then
Yeah,
like the modern world.
absolutely.
And so you've been working with Irish music really since childhood.
Yeah. It's actually quite similar to you, Vanessa, with like you said, you're Italian American and grew up with an Irish American neighbor. And I grew up in a very sort of Irish and Italian American community on the East Coast, just about an hour outside of New York, coastal New Jersey. And so, like, I always joke that like my ancestors came here in the 20th century, came through Ellis Island, and were like, here's good, like
Hmm.
they just settled in Jersey City, where I was born. My grandfather had a tavern, 7 kids. The neighborhood was called a parish. Everything was centered around the church. And
Hmm.
music was also a part of that. So, really, my upbringing, we were talking a lot about this in Ireland this past month. Like, my upbringing didn't look that different from some of my Irish friends who grew up there. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, it's just interesting. Like, and the fact that here in America, we have the unique situation of you having your Italian culture and your neighbor having the Irish culture, and you both being able to share that as children together. There are a few places that I think in the world where, like, I grew up with other cultures as well, because I had a best friend who was Danish, her parents, and she moved from Denmark, and then other families who were Italian American. I got to learn about that. So
Hmm.
America really is a melting pot. And yeah, it's amazing how people have kept the cultures from the old countries alive while, um, hopefully for the most part, being able to welcome other cultures and learn about others.
Yeah, I think like you're threading something for me. It's so multimodal that I'm like, okay, I gotta take a breath because it's so special.
Mm.
It's really special because um like what I heard was, you know, from childhood to adulthood, it's here's Madeline and she's like threading all of these different pieces from old world to new world and old self to new self, and like I just think that process, that's my very, very zoomed out process right now, our view on it. I think it's really, really amazing and special. Um, so kind of starting there and just weaving with that, I feel like,
Mm.
so what was it like for maybe your child self to be in Ireland this time around?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, well, I guess to go back a little bit, when I was like a kid around 10, I started having these like preternatural sort of um, feelings, connections to the motherland and the language and the music. And my grandfather was a great singer. My parents are great singers, even though they would never do it professionally, just casual, but they have beautiful voices. And my dad would sing my brothers and I to sleep every night, play guitar. And that's really what I remember so fondly about my childhood, is like spending time with my elders, my grandfather, who I was very close to, and my dad singing. And
Hmm.
yeah, and a lot of those songs were obviously Irish songs, and not in Irish, but Irish songs. And then when my parents would show me films that had the Irish language in it, like expose me to that, I just had this weird calling to it. And I guess you could say, like, oh, it's because you were raised in a similar way, just the American version, and so it seems familiar, but it always felt deeper than that. It always felt like I don't know, it always felt like, not to get too although I feel like this is a good space to not to get too like past lifey, but I've always felt like I had as a kid like memories that didn't belong to me, that I was very in touch with wanting to know more about my ancestors and feeling like I already did.
Hmm.
And the stories that my grandparents would tell me, I'd be like, yeah, I know, like I just was so in tune to that. And so anyway, to come back to Ireland this time around, um, I guess okay, so actually I'm gonna go back.
Hmm. There's so
Sorry,
much there. Yeah.
there's so much. Yeah. So I started, being recognized as like someone who could sing at a young age. And then in America, that means, as you yourself know, Vanessa, you start trying to people start trying to monetize that for you and try to make it, professional. And you start studying classically and do musical theater. And I did all those things. And I went to a performing arts high school and I went to a conservatory. And there was a lot of, yeah, anyway, that's a whole other thing.
Hmm.
But
I want to
like,
come back to that.
yeah, we'll come back to it. Irish traditional singing is the first thing I ever did, and it's such a home base for me. And so when the pandemic hit and all of my theater jobs, dried up, and all the momentum I was building trying to make it on Broadway in New York, like just didn't, just stopped, and all the connections and everything that I was working toward just stopped, and it felt like it would never come back. And I was so depressed, and I went back to my musical heritage just to heal myself and to turn back to that thing that always felt right and natural and always comforted me as a kid. And I started putting those videos online, and
Wow.
they started going viral on TikTok and um, Instagram, and people started reaching out saying things like, "Oh, my grandmother used to sing this to me when I was a child, and I haven't heard it since, and I'm 70 years old now, and I never knew what it was called, and now you've brought it back to me." Like special things like that. And so to finally go to Ireland again this time to perform those songs with all, native Irish speakers and people who are really, born there and are more authentically Irish than me in that way. But to have them be so welcoming of me and my story and my background was so, so special. To sing in Irish, our ancestors' language, alongside them, and realize how much, transatlantic emigration has affected Ireland as well as America, that they went through a big loss when they lost all of our ancestors who came here. And yeah, and they feel that loss keenly as well. So I know that was very long-winded. Sorry, all over the
No,
place, but
it's so beautiful. I'm actually really emotional, like listening to it. It's so beautiful. My heart is just like, oh, it's melting and it's cracking open because I think, really what I heard inside that beautiful share in that space is like that inner knowing of
mm-hmm.
inner knowing and that just like really raw innate quality. I asked about your child self and like just you coming back during the pandemic times back to something that is really true for you. I
Yeah,
think speaks to you know the creative process that I think every artist in whatever medium that they work with and work through um, really hones in on, and why I do think creativity touches into spirituality. It doesn't have to mean religion and and that kind of thing, but just like the nature of one spirit and what's real inside the soul. And
right,
and I think you said a lot of things that really touch into that space, which is like having memories or having um, an idea or a feeling of a memory, however, that experience can come in, that you're like, are these my own? But they feel
right,
really mine and real in some way, shape, or form. And I think like, and then our ancestral connection and with that is like the epigenetics or like the things that are passed down in DNA, that's measurable, that's scientifically studied. Um,
absolutely.
and why not memories passed on those epigenetic markers.
Hmm.
Um, I think a lot of people think of epigenetics in terms of like, oh, in my heritage or in my family, I there's like a trace of heart disease or cancer,
Right.
in the physical. But like, why not the maybe more psychosomatic, spiritual, memory based
Right.
pieces as well? Um,
Actually, never thought of it that way. That's pretty comforting to hear. Yeah.
yeah, it kind of bridges, I think, science and spirituality, like just that one bit. And I think over time that will be studied more. That's just
Yeah.
my inkling. Um, like I'm sure there are what do they call them? Like not only cross cultural, but like the across time
Mm.
studies, longitudinal studies, where there are, like mental health. I mean, we could see that like certain mental health things are passed, through the bloodline, like families having a
Absolutely.
history of schizophrenia or depression or whatever. So like,
Absolutely.
why not the other stuff, like
Yeah.
the beauty and like, oh, this certain quality or this musical bit, and it's really amazing. So you
Yeah.
know feeling into all of that, and like I think that there's something we, meaning the collective and people around me, are starting to talk about ancestors more, as I think because this time of year, at least in the northern hemisphere, it's like the equinox has happened. We're in fall now. It is the time of the ancestors. And so I think
Yeah.
seasonally there's that. I know there's like the Celtic wheel of the year.
Yes.
Which
And Samhain, like around October 31st, November 1st, it's the night when the veil is the thinnest. And that's, ancient Irish pagan
mhm,
um, beliefs. Yeah.
absolutely. And so it's like I think the attunement to the ancestral realm, I think, starts to become a little bit louder this time of
Yeah.
year. So it's really, I think, in a world that's really fast paced and where we're like focusing on like all the stuff, we meaning the collective, maybe not necessarily you, Army, but like
Right.
just
Right.
the collective is like,
Collective we.
yeah, collectively is focusing on achievements and all of the day-to-day things. Um, we can forget about the past, and we can forget about all of the ancestral connection that helped to get us to where we are now. Like,
Totally.
how many ancestors did it take for you to have the life that you have?
I have been constantly thinking about this recently just because, it's also something that I feel like I'm so glad you brought up because it's something that I feel like I've been wrestling with my whole life, this sort of
Mm,
guilt that and this guilt that like my ancestors had such hard lives trying to come over here, being forced to leave Ireland when they didn't want to,
mm,
um, and coming over here in time for the Great Depression and to be drafted into World War II and just go through so much poverty and loss. And um, it's just like, yeah, they never got to, if they had any artistic talents, no one ever got to know about them. They never
mm,
got to express. I know they had joys in their lives as well, not to paint a picture that it was all bad, but when you look at the the stats of their lives, it was just hardship after hardship. And um yeah, I've always felt since a very, very young age that I have some sort of like obligation to them. Even as like a
wow.
kid where I didn't even really necessarily know things yet, but I just felt like um if I because I have the life that I have and the gifts or whatever that I have, I guess like I'm gonna have to use them to tell that story. I've always felt that.
Wow. How young were you when you felt that? Maybe like, do you have a first memory of it?
Yeah, I think maybe 8 to
Wow.
10 around there. I started to, and who knows, again, like my more cynical self is like, okay, that's just depression. Like that was
Mm,
just your chemical depression coming in at that time and making you sad and pondering about other times and pondering about like,
mhm.
so I do wonder what exactly that is. And maybe it's a mix of both. Maybe it's because I spent so much time with my elders that like their memories of a bygone era became so real for me, and the impending like loss of them because they were old and I loved them so much. Maybe that's all wrapped up in that. I don't know. But
Mhm.
that's when I started to feel like I'm going to have to document things. And I'm going to have to use my whatever I got to kind of preserve, because I know that there's
Mm-hmm.
something so special here in the, I don't know. I don't know. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think like, my work as a transpersonal psychologist and then working, so that's like the study of existentialism and making
Mm.
meaning and purpose. And it's not clinical psychology, but like that part of my mind and my field, I'm like, oh, there's something coming in with what you're saying. And then there's
Oh,
like
interesting.
the musician in me, the sound healer, there's those parts of me that are like feeling into what you're sharing. But I mean, like, why not both and or all of it, like,
Yeah.
um, I do think in a family, there are people, sometimes it's like a couple, one, maybe two, that really
Right.
start to feel something like in the bloodline that maybe wants to be liberated or wants to come through.
Yeah.
And it just sounds like, maybe not saying that this is what's happening, but it just sounds like maybe that's been a part of your voice and your expression, is like there's maybe something from your ancestral um, lines that
Hmm.
you know it's almost like it's moved through the bloodline until someone can feel it, will accept some kind of feeling, and and
Right.
then you came in with like a gift set to do that with your voice through singing and then all of the artistic expressions. um I know, like, I know in my family, I'm definitely a person who's holding that, and in our own way
Hmm.
as well. Um, and I mean, what you shared about like coming over, not wanting to come over, then being drafted for the war, like that's a lot. Like I just feel it, like, um, of course there's joys and things like that, but like I wonder like what kind of aspirations or dreams maybe those people, your ancestors would have um, worked toward, or what they would have moved toward if the circumstance was different, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my grandfather is the one who was drafted into World War II, and he
Wow.
actually lived a very long life. I was best friends with him. I had tea with him on the porch every day in the afternoons. During
Hmm.
the no, not during the pandemic. Sorry, he passed away right before the pandemic. Um, thankfully, actually, but he was 93,
Wow.
and so he would be 100 this past year, and yeah, just he had such a long life, and he told me so many stories, and we just had such a special connection. He was also a great singer. We shared a love of jazz, and he knew all the great standards and everything. And yeah, it's his mother that came from a small village in Ireland and had a very, very difficult life, and um,
Wow. What was her
lost her
name?
husband. Her name was Eleonora.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, my mom just became an Irish citizen, and we had to do all this. She had to do all this paperwork using the censuses and the proof that she had, relatives from Ireland in order to
Mm-hmm.
get the citizenship. And so, um, my family came with me to Ireland this past time, and we all went to the village where my mom's grandmother was from, Eleonora. And it's a small village in Galway, and it's just lovely. And it was just so special to all be there together, and imagining her as a little girl walking these streets, before life got so tough,
Mm-hmm.
was really special. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, so, wow. I mean, it's so beautiful. It's such a, I feel like it's really, really rich. And like the pieces that you're bringing in about like going there, experiencing um her village, like how do you feel like that
Yeah.
has woven or like shaped your art or your voice or your singing? Like, I mean, I know that obviously you're out there in the world with Irish singing, but like, I mean, is it something that you feel like you're bringing in the process? Are you writing music about any of it? I'm just curious about that part.
Yeah, well, I've had so many conversations and experiences with um, both family and then people in Ireland, audience members and guests who came to the festival, who were just telling me their stories, whether they're Irish or American, or from all over the world, with Irish heritage. Just seeing all the threads of similarities, and hearing people's individual specific stories really um, sharpened my awareness, made my appreciation more keen, I guess, for for all of the things I sing about in these songs. These
Mm,
songs have been sung by my ancestors for hundreds of years, and the fact that they're still alive and I still get to keep these names spoken about, and these stories and the people in them are just that much more alive to me after, like, with each person I speak to, and each person I met in Ireland. And
mhm.
yeah, and also visiting Woodford is the name of the village in Galway. Visiting there helped, I don't know, just all the questions I had about my grandfather, things he would never share, because he was a pretty open book, but he wouldn't talk about the war uh, unless he was talking about his comrades. He wouldn't talk about combat. He was always a very positive guy, and he wouldn't
Oh,
talk about the, you know, the horrors of being so poor in the Depression in Jersey City. He would talk about how his single mother, Eleonora, and his uncles lived with them to help out. And he didn't speak much about his mother, and I think she was a difficult character. And so, I don't know, just going to the village where she was from, it was so beautiful. And yeah, it's a safe place to live now. Yeah, it was very healing, I think, to see, and he never got to see it. So I
mm,
wish he
mhm.
could have seen where his mother came from. And but yeah, I don't know, that's a lot of things, but there's so
Yeah,
much on my mind about all of this. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, just incredible. I think the reparation and like that work of like working with just the ancestors, and it's very personal. So I really
Yeah,
appreciate you sharing about your family and sharing it with us here, because it can be really personal and there's so much. And I think though it's very relatable because everyone in the world comes from somewhere
absolutely.
with things. Like we all have things, like every family has things in whatever way, shape, or form they come. And it's really, really, I think, good to share family stories like that. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'm somehow inclined to go back to what you're sharing about the pandemic days, and
Yeah.
you said you were working to try to get on Broadway
Yeah.
and things shut down. What was that? How did that affect you? Like, what was that process like? It's you mentioned something about mental health in there.
Yeah, absolutely. From about the age of 14, I started really taking singing and acting very seriously, like pursuing that, became very driven and had mostly great mentors pushing me toward it and helping me with it. And I went to a performing arts high school and like majored in vocal music and drama, and then took a gap year, signed with an agent right out of high school, and tried to audition a bunch and work. And it proved very hard on me and my mental health. And this is also pre Me Too, so there was a lot, like just a few years pre Me Too, but you might have guessed it was like decades before.
Mm,
It was very hard for young women. And yeah, just a lot of things I struggled with like body image in that space, and eating problems, and just depression and dissociation. And I wouldn't have had all of those words to describe it back then, because I was just so focused, driven on trying to make it.
mhm,
And so the way I see it now with therapy and medication and all that good stuff is I was really offline for a while, not in my body, and went through a series of industry related traumas, lowercase and capital T.
mhm,
um, and yeah, and then finally, when I couldn't kind of kid myself into like, oh, it's all part of the grind, it's all part of the hustle, busy, busy, like we're making it, we're one step away, we're three steps away, we're close. Like once everything shut down and we were all just like faced with ourselves and our like souls, and just free time and no gigs, I was like, oh my gosh, something is deeply wrong. And um, yeah, I had to go to therapy and realize all these things. I was so deeply depressed. And yeah, and so I sort of turned to, as I said, my musical heritage, not as a way to monetize or try to turn it into business at all, but because I need, my soul really needed to be like, do I even like what I do? Do I like singing? Am I actually meant to be doing this just because I can do it and people told me at a young
Wow.
age you could do this? Like I started just like wondering things like that. And yeah, it's when I started writing more. I went to school for fiction at the new school after my conservatory, so that was really healing as well, just to do a different discipline that wasn't like performing and didn't feel exploitative or anything. Like it was like I was always writing stories as a kid. You know, I was always very imaginative and turning all the things I heard from my grandparents and ancestors into stories as well. So that was
Wow.
always a safe kind of outlet for me as well. So in the pandemic, turning to this style of singing, traditional Irish music, and writing more really saved me. And you know, since the things started opening up again, I started like acting again and auditioning and singing, and but it just feels like such a I'm in such a better place that and traditional music and the cultural things that come with that like have really rooted me and grounded me in a place that I can bring everything I've like learned from that style, where like for example it's not about you, it's about the work, it's about the craft. And you know, theater and performing and America in general is very much about the individual. Like
Mm.
you, the star, you have to like attention, focus on you. And that can be really crippling for some
Mm-hmm.
sensitive folk. And so the fact that like the sociology around performing in Ireland and in Irish culture is like, you're just the vessel. It's not about you. It's
Mm-hmm.
about the stories you're telling. And so yeah, that really helped me to bring that vibe into the, you know, performing theater singing work. That's not the traditional stuff. So
Wow. That
yeah,
is such a beautiful journey. And like, it just, I feel like demonstrates so much vulnerability and a lot of strength and a lot of courage to, first of all, share
thanks.
and to thank you in your voice, but like also to continue, you know, and and to rise into it and to understand, you know, something was not right inside or something felt off, you know, and
Yeah,
going through that process. I mean, is there something that you like a nugget of wisdom or something that you would say to your younger self or maybe to like someone who would be like you know?
right. Gosh, it's always so hard. And always when people are asked this, like in
I
interviews
know.
or podcasts, they say, like, I don't know if she would listen, you know, that's like a classic line.
Yeah.
So that comes to mind. Um, but I think, yeah, gosh, this is hard. I would say like there it's so cliched, but there really is something authentic about each person. And you have to know what it is, find out what it is, and embrace it, because otherwise you're just being like a surface level version of yourself, and that's making you sad, and it's making you not succeed
Hmm.
because it's not catching people's eyes, you know? And when you find what is so authentic to you, and you might think, oh, it's niche or it's nerdy, like this Irish singing thing that I went back to. I was always the weird girl in like middle school and elementary school, like singing songs in Irish to myself. Like no one else
Oh.
was, you know, in America was doing that. And so like it's about finding that weird and like writing stories, like writing. I was doing all these, you know, things, and it's like find you like look to what was weird about you as a kid because that's probably your purest thing,
Hmm.
and that will give you a clue as to like what you should do next, or like what will be your spark in what you're already doing, you know? Like
Hmm. Undoubtedly. Hmm.
yeah, it's just like that thing is so authentic to me when I do it. And I've noticed like performing in Ireland and Rockport this month, like on both sides of the Atlantic, people just come up to me and they talk about like how it really resonates with them. And that's not me, that's the music, but it's like because I'm in that place where I'm in that pocket, I'm able to give them that experience of what the music is. And um yeah, that's just really special. I
Hmm.
think you just kind of light up when you use that thing.
Totally. And I love that share, and it's very resonant, especially for my world and transpersonal psychology and
Mm,
existentialism. It is that, I love the way that you shared it and said it. I think that more people trusting themselves and really believing, not
totally.
I think it's like the cliche is like, oh, I gotta believe in myself. But I was just gonna drop the in and just say like believing yourself. Like
Mm,
believing, oh, this is like what I'm sensing and feeling, and my intuition is telling me to move toward, even if it's semi seemingly strange or nerdy or weird or niche and da da da. Like those unique things are like your energetic signature markers that tell you like,
yes.
yeah, bring that to the world. Um,
Yeah.
and there's so much overlap, of course. Like we can all be singers, but no one's gonna have your unique voice.
Right. Right. And I think there's a lot of like, you know, kind of mimicking and copying with singers because, agents are always like, oh, I can market you as the next whoever. And young singers are like, oh, I see that this person did this and they're successful. But like if people didn't kind of copy other people's timbres or tones because they see, oh, that makes it, like what is
Hmm.
your most unique one, like what is your what is
Right.
your true timbre, that's going to be unique. And so yeah.
For people who are not musicians, can you describe timbre?
Yeah, timbre is like it's like your unique tone of your voice. So, some people have a really like light, airy timbre, some people have a really dark, lower, rich timbre. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, like I'm obsessed with timbre. Just FYI.
It's also a beautiful word, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Spelled like timbre, like
Timbre. Yes.
Timbre.
I know.
Um,
It gives me a special glow just to say it.
but I it's how we know who's speaking,
Yeah. Oh, so true.
you know? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
the fact that someone's listening to this and like, oh, that's Madeline, oh, that's Vanessa.
Right. Right.
It's the timbre in the voice that actually really gives us that color and the differentiation. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously among a bunch of other things, but um yeah, it's one of the nerdiest things about me. I'm obsessed with timbre.
No, me too. And like, not to even go further, but like, you know, your voice is like always capturing, whether you're speaking or singing, but especially singing, your voice is always capturing like what is in that like deep feeling center, because it has to, in order for the voice to like produce sound in singing, it has to go through, as you know, like from the viscera, like the diaphragm, it comes up through, touches on the larynx, the voice box, if you will, and then it comes out. And it's like it always has to touch on whatever you're feeling that day. And so many things like your life experience, your genetics inform your voice, how it sounds, how you use it, whether it's, big or small. And so, yeah, like it's just a
Hmm.
beautiful thing that like, and on any given day, your voice is actually expressing what's like actually deep in there when you're singing.
Yeah, like the heartstrings, because it's like
Yes,
it's
yeah.
really connected. It's so I'm so nerding out.
Same, obviously. Sorry.
I wanted to ask a question about something you said, which was, oh, I could market you this way. Have you
Mm.
been told that?
Yeah, for sure. By um, many people telling you in various schools or offices in New York, like, you're this, you are an ingenue, and you need to be this weight and this size and this type and this voice and this, and it's just how sadly how like the business works.
Hmm.
So in a way, it's like good advice for how to make it in that business. It might be harsh, but it's like this is how you are going to make it in this business, which is deeply shallow and unfair. But
Hmm.
like, um, yeah, but it's also damaging to hear that, and it takes away individuality. All these conservatories telling people, you're this type. It's good to know your type because you then know what kind of work you'll be auditioning for and what you'd book, and how the industry would see you. But it's just a shame that there isn't more space for people to be their more authentic selves. Now that is changing for the better, for sure.
Hmm.
In the acting and performing space, we're seeing more and more, people of color and queer folks rise and show the industry that, in fact, the people do love this. They
Right.
do love what I'm doing. They do resonate with my story, my individuality, and um, yeah, that's really exciting to see. But
Hmm.
certainly when I was a teenager coming into New York and auditioning, that wasn't the case yet. And it definitely is still an issue for so many people who even aren't as privileged as I am as a white woman. So it's like,
Hmm.
um, yeah, it's a very complicated issue and very tricky on the psyche,
Hmm.
for young performers or any age performers going through it. Yeah,
Wow. I have a lot to say on that, but
I know. I
that
know we
would
could go on and
be
on.
a 5 hour TED talk.
Totally.
Hmm. One of the things I was inspired to ask about is, so we've talked a lot about voice and singing, but so you're a writer and you're an
Yeah.
actress.
Yeah.
Are there any things, well, and I want to know obviously about projects that you're working on with voice too, but like, are there any things that you're working on with that, or how are you relating to those worlds now?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, like I said, I went to the New School, which is a great school here in New York after my conservatory, also here in New York. And I studied, I wanted to just take a little break from performing, and I got into their writing program and concentrated on fiction. And my thesis project was a novel in progress that I'm actually still working on. Like, I think I've been working on it for 6 years now.
Wow.
And it's been through many drafts and through a pandemic and a hard drive crash and all these things. But
Oh
it is
my.
also, I know, it is also an Irish in nature story, because I guess you just can't get away from who you are and the stories that you have to tell. So yeah, I've been working on that, and still plugging away at it and doing novel workshops and getting feedback from great mentors. And yeah, it's tricky, like when you're not like a published author, to be like, I'm a writer, but I do write, so that does make me a writer. And
Yes.
I am working toward it. So that is what's happening there. Yeah,
Uh,
and the
Irish in
singing.
nature.
Yeah,
Hold on. Did you
yeah, yeah,
mean, what do you, can you say anything about it?
yeah. I guess like for a long time I've wondered, like, because whenever I'm in Ireland, I'm the American girl who's singing in
Mm.
Irish, like, oh, the American girl sings in Irish, like, wow. But then over here, I'm the Irish girl, because in
Mm.
America, we're also like, you're saying like I'm Italian, I'm
Hmm.
saying I'm Irish, and people from those countries are like, you're American.
Right, right.
So it's like a weird thing. But like as I said when I detailed my upbringing, so Irish in nature, like it was just so Irish in every way, just on a different continent. It's a huge part of who I am. It's like very much, to use your word from earlier, threaded into my identity. And so everything I've ever created goes through that lens. And I thought, like, at one point, like, is it stupid that like the only thing I can seem to create is like through an Irish lens? Like maybe I need to like chill out with this and try to like branch out. But then I just like, it's just how it is. It's how I see the world. It's how I like relate to everything. And so, and it's the stories I'm interested in
Hmm.
consuming and telling. So yeah.
I love that. I thought you meant like Irish in nature, meaning like out in like the flora and the fauna. And I was
Oh,
like,
well, that's
wait.
beautiful too. And I did experience a ton of that on my recent trip there.
I was like, I have to ask. Um, I'm right now I'm currently writing. I'm threading a lot of things. I use the word threaded a lot.
I love threading. I'm gonna steal it. I'm used threading now.
I'm
Thanks.
always sewing myself together, but
Yeah, I'll give you
um,
10% every time I say threading.
oh my gosh, hilarious. Um, oh my gosh. No, I mean, obsession is the word is so I'm writing about obsession and what that word is and like I think there's a lot of demonization with that word and thinking about that word and in terms of my own life and things like that. So
Yeah.
um, it's it's following an interesting process for me. So that's just this is a tangent, but
Oh, I
anyway,
love it. I'm so interested. No, so can I just ask, is it like
yeah.
essays about
Yeah.
obsession?
Yeah, I'm
Oh, okay,
starting
cool.
to really so brief context. I went through an erotic writing mentorship, which was not about sex, but about really like being in one's aliveness. And
Ah,
with Nairi, she's at Soft Moon Rose on Instagram. She's an
oh,
amazing
cool.
teacher, and we went into this place where I was like, what's the connection between one's aliveness, eros, the archetype of eros, and obsession. And
Ah,
and we touched in on that, and then it sparked some seeds for me. And I know she's writing a lot about that as well right now. Incredible, incredible writing. And
I'm following as we speak.
yeah, right. Thanks. Hey, thanks. She's so amazing. She's so amazing, and I feel like more people ought to know about her. So, yeah, it's created a lot of new awarenesses for me, and I think what's the main thing? I'm like, how do I land this plane? Because I could talk about it for years. I think I'm like, um, writing essays on it, and I think that when we are really engaged with something we're super interested in like you have a niche in Irish things and
Right.
voice and culture and it excites you and you can tell in your voice that is so exciting to me to hear and that's
Mm,
you being in your aliveness is what why I invited you onto the podcast because I was like, I want to hear about all these amazing things that you're doing, and people can feel that. And so I think that if more people could let themselves go there,
right.
I wonder what the world would be like.
Right. And not be afraid to like with stigma or whatever it is you're exploring. I mean, there's a whole other conversation we can get into about like obsession and like
Absolutely.
yeah, the culture of yeah, especially with yeah. That's another thing.
Yeah, like there's like definitely there can be a shadow side of obsession. But I think there can be something really amazing and beautiful about it. So, um,
Absolutely.
anyway, that's what I'm teasing apart on my Substack. But um
Amazing.
yeah, I wanted to ask in the last bit here, what do you have coming up? How can we connect with you? Um, yeah,
Well, so I definitely have some more exciting musical collaborations coming up. And you mentioned the Wheel of the Year before. I am doing a project right now. I've released the first single of it this summer. But it's a project where I arrange beloved Shanos songs. Shanos means old style, so just ancient songs. Um, I record, arrange, release, perform, whatever, um, one of these songs according to the Wheel of the Year. So I did one for summer. It's called Saura Saura, which means summer, summer. And it's an ancient song that, the pagan ancestors used to sing to welcome in the summer. Hugmer Fain and Sauralin is what the line is. We have brought the summer with us. And it
wow,
details all these beautiful things about mentioning the Nonin, Glegal, the bright yellow daisy, and milk of the cows, and summer of the setting sun, and all of these beautiful images associated with summer. It's almost like the ancestors were manifesting a good summer or a good harvest, and they'd use these songs to do that. So I'm choosing songs that are kind of coinciding with the ancient calendar and arranging them myself to be a little bit more, I guess, contemporary or what I hear when I hear them, because all of these songs are just a cappella sung lines. And what's cool about them is a musician or a composer can kind of impose any kind of chords underneath it that they want, or whatever it is that they hear. Do I hear strings on this song? Do I hear just piano, or do I hear just the voice or a drone underneath? And so that excites me that people are kind of taking these old songs and doing that with them now. So that's one thing I have cooking. Some more performances, which I'll announce on my Instagram, which is at Madelyn with a Y underscore Monaghan with a G, is a lot. It's a lot of tricky letters.
We'll link it here. Don't
Well,
worry,
like,
guys.
and then yeah, I'm just plugging away on my novel, which I'm have been trying to turn into a theater piece. So we'll see if I have the courage and connections to try to make that happen in some way this
Say
year.
less, sister. I am there. That is going to be, we're manifesting it. It's
We're
going to be
manifesting it.
amazing.
Thank you. Why not? Why not manifest it, you know?
I'm so excited for you. I mean, I love what you're doing with the songs and the seasons. That is
Oh, thank you.
near and dear to my
I
heart.
thought that would very much align with you, so I could comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. And the novel brought into theater, I see it, and I think that it's going to be really amazing.
Even with no information or no proof that I'm talented, you're like, yes.
Well, let me tell you, Madeline, I don't know if you know this about me, but my work is very intuitive.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Yeah.
So half the time,
My heart is
people
comforted.
not in a weird fortune telly way, but just more of like a just really feeling the energy of certain things that people bring to a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, that's my work.
Oh,
And has been that's my life. Let's put it
that's
that
your
way.
life. Yeah. That's your life
It's
work.
that's been me since a very young age. So yeah, no, I
That's
can
very
really feel
cool.
it. Anyway, just other things.
Oh.
Check out Madeline on Instagram. We're gonna link her and all the things below. And you're also on TikTok, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on TikTok. Same handle at Madelyn underscore Monaghan over there. Yeah.
Awesome. No, it's been such a pleasure, and I am just so grateful that we've gotten to have this conversation today and all of the beautiful pieces you brought to the conversation. Just like, wow. So,
Oh,
um,
thank you so much, Vanessa. I really appreciate it. You're so fun to chat with.
oh, thank you. Thank you. So concluding here for now, everyone, I hope you had a great listen and that you have a great day wherever you are. And yeah, until next time. All right, bye.
Bye.